Welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. I'm your host, Jamie Lima, and founder of Allegiant Divorce Solutions and Secure Split. Today's guest is Paul Murphy, the creator of Divorce Detox, an online digital guide specifically designed to help men navigate the often overwhelming journey of divorce. That was me just a few years ago there, Paul. Paul's journey has taken him from being an inner city paramedic to healthcare administration, all while writing over 50 articles and speaking at conferences nationwide. But it wasn't until his own divorce about 10 years ago that he recognized a gap in resources for men going through the process. This led him to launch Divorce Detox in 2024, a comprehensive, self-paced program that tackles everything from separation and mediation to dating and co-parenting. Today, we're going to talk about how men can better manage the emotional, financial, and relational aspects of divorce, and why having the right tools in place from the start makes all the difference. So buckle up, grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, and once again, let's get you personally and financially empowered. Paul, it's great to have you with us today, man.
Jamie, thanks so much for the opportunity. It was great to touch base prior to going live here. I look forward to the session, and feel free to fire away. I'm good to go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is going to be a good convo because I will share with you that not by design, but by default, for some reason, 90+% of the people that reach out for help to us, that hire us as certified divorce financial analysts, who help ask for assistance as they're navigating the divorce process, are women. And you know, after going through a divorce, and I know going through my own nasty divorce years ago, that all of us dudes need as much help as we possibly can get going through this process. And even as a financial planner at that time, I had challenges and made some mistakes along the way. So one thing that I've heard in the past, and I want you to speak to this just right out of the gate, is a previous guest of ours that works with a lot of men in this space told me one time, you know, the reason why that is, Jamie, is because a lot of us dudes have John Wayne syndrome. What are your thoughts on that?
Agree 100%. And that's half the reason we created this program. It's and not to be insulting to the guys or the females for that matter, but I'm a cowboy, I'm a hardcore guy, I can take care of this stuff. Sure, you can take care of the budgets, the child support. I'm not downplaying this. It's all relevant. You can take care of the assets. And when you look at divorce for myself, having gone through it once, it's like a business deal gone bad. Because you come together, you co-mix stuff, then you go through this process where you sign paperwork and you divorce for life. We'll touch on that in a bit. But the one thing, the mechanics of this whole thing that's missing, and why my mentor pushed me down this path to create this program, is because a lot of programs do not discuss the emotions, the mindset, and the heart set. And based on conversations I've had with other divorced guys, based on some of the podcasts I've been on, how people are like, holy cow, we didn't think about that. Because when you think about divorces, even if they're quote unquote amicable, they're tough. It's hard, and no one gets married to get divorced. And when you're going through this stuff, you're going through all the mechanics of divorce, you have to, in my opinion, consider the emotions, the mindset, and the heart set, because you're making some big decisions here. And when your emotions are sky high and your mindset's going a million miles an hour, is that the time you're making big finance decisions, to your point with your financial planning with some people going through divorce? Or you're in a meeting and you realize, when I get off of this meeting from my 9 to 5, I'm going to go to mediation. I still got to get through this meeting. And your colleagues, your peers, and if you have kids, they all pick up on it. And for myself, I had to get pulled aside back in, we separated on paper in 2009, divorced 2013 on paper. And I had people pull me aside and say, dude, what is up with you? And I was missing it because I wasn't aware of it. And not everyone wears this stuff on their sleeve. So I think the John Wayne analogy is completely spot on. And it's sad, and that's, again, why my mentor pushed me to do this program, because she's like, Paul, you need to pull in the emotional wheel. You need to pull in all this other stuff to help guys out, not just the whole, make sure you protect your apartment, make sure you have the kids' schedule, make sure you're sharing calendars. It's the other stuff on top of it that really counts.
Do you think this stems from the lack of resources that are out there, or do you just feel like it really just gets down to the ego?
I think it's a combination of both. And part of the reason we created this program is when I went through my separation divorce, I was grasping at straws. I was looking left and right, trying to figure stuff out. And even with siblings who've been divorced, until you live through it, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know how you are going to respond. Like, I never considered going to a therapist to touch base just to see if I was doing okay, because I was making big decisions involving kids and everything else and going that path. Yeah. So not knowing what's out there and not having a tool to go to is half the reason we built this program is because it brings the core stuff together. And one thing I'll preface on this, no one program can cover everything in a divorce because there's so many nuances. But if you can cover the meat of the matter, if you will, or the core topics, you're good there. The ego comes into play as well because, and I'm not your typical guy. I'm not the guy on the weekend who's watching sports games, and I'm not all day Saturday, Sunday in the fall watching football games. I'm the opposite. And even to this day, my girlfriend, 3+ years, she's like, "You're so funny. You're so not a man. You turned your man card in, Paul." I'm like, "Yeah," but the guys who have their man cards, a lot of them, I don't care about the emotions. It's purely decision making based on assets, et cetera, my prenup and all this type of stuff. So I think it's a combination of those two. And it's easy for us to discuss this. In reality, based on the conversations I've had, getting someone to accept that and then to respect that and to take appropriate actions is a whole Pandora's box.
I can go in so many different angles on this. One thing that you were like early part of that answer to the question, you talked about your colleagues, your friends, your peers, your loved ones, whoever, like picking up on something's off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the things I'll just share with you, because we're friends in this last 6 minutes of our life, we're BFFs. I'll share with you that I had some physical challenges and not only the emotional and the situation that you have to deal with, but the health toll and the mental health toll that it took on me. I luckily didn't have to resort to any drugs I was able to naturally be able to get myself back on path, and I have an amazing chiropractor and acupuncturist that's what I believe in. That's what worked for me and got me through it. But the emotional, financial, and all of it just like weighed on me. So what are some of the common misconceptions that men have about the emotional side of divorce and maybe even the physical? I think going back to the John Wayne thing, they just think that they can just like toughen up and get through it. But a lot of them end up with physical challenges and physical problems from this, right?
Absolutely. Hands down. And you just picked on a whole bunch of different things. And I too will share with you, I've been going to a chiropractor for the last 3 years. I wish I did it 15+ years ago because physically for myself, with the stress of just life and being a divorced guy and everything else, I go in weekly. It's the highlight of my week as far as physical activity, just because I'm getting adjusted. And so that works. And this ties into the question where you frame it where, why is it about the physical emotions and guys blowing it off? I think part of it is they're stoic. They're going to be the hero. I'm a guy. This is my family. I'm going to take care of them. I'm the dominant. And I'm not trying to come off. Actually, I am. I'm showing the aggressiveness on video because the John Wayne thing goes that way. I'll take care of the physical stuff because I still got to go to work, do what have you. The emotion stuff will take care of itself. The answer is, guys, if you blow off the emotions, it's going to creep up on you. And as a paramedic, we used to see this all the time where people would let the stress of their anxiety get to them and then start doing self-harm and other paths because their emotions are out of control. I'm a guy who does not like uncertainty, and uncertainty makes me anxious. Well, guess what? For myself, I get divorced on paper. I sign it. I'm divorced for life. Guess what, guys? I have a whole part of my life I can't predict what's going to happen because I've got 2 kids. I'm divorced, and I don't know what the next chapter is going to bring because I've never been through this and no one can predict it. So what happens to me is to share with you. My anxiety level starts to go up. And can I tell? Oh, hands, yes. Because I get anxious, I get nervous. And for myself, hands down, the best thing that I do for myself, I work out daily, usually before work in the morning just to get it in. And then I get outside and I get fresh air because for me, that is my dopamine release. That is where I get my deep sigh of breath of relief, even when it's crisis type stuff. But a lot of guys who I've spoken to and a lot of guys that I've observed as a medic don't. And they're like, I'm just going to pull through this thing. And sure, you could be a bulldozer and plow stuff through, but ignoring stuff isn't good. And the other thing, Jamie, just to mention it briefly, is when you look at why am I getting divorced, et cetera, maybe it's your emotional wall that's causing you to have a divorce. And just because you think you can get through this now, what's going to happen if you have another relationship? Are you going to have these issues? And sometimes you may have to have some tough love from some family and friends who take you aside and have a conversation with you saying, dude, you are cold as ice, and we know you're mad and upset and everything else, but seriously, take a chill and take a step back.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. We are cut from the same cloth in a lot of respects because with my situation, not that I want anybody to feel bad for me, but I started a business at roughly around the same time, and had a new relationship a short while thereafter, and like all these things were coming to a head, like all these very stressful transitions and everything else. It's like looking back now, and I guess the message that I would like to reiterate and get across to the listeners here is you have to be willing to be able to reach out for that help and surround yourself with Team U, and who I believe is, your attorney, your financial planner, your friends and loved ones, and your religious support system, and your physical support people like your chiropractors and acupuncturists like we have. And so you have to do that because that's the only way to survive. Let me shift gears a little bit here because I have a couple of questions for you on that are coming to mind here about managing relationships through this, because this is one you kind of talked about this, like maybe you're losing relationships because of your emotional bandwidth. Mm-hmm. How do you handle, and maybe how did you handle this, or maybe what do you coach men to handling the relationships that are new to them, like managing their attorney, managing their mediator, like the people that are going to come and go in this situation? Like there's all these new relationships, right? So tell me a little bit about like what you would say to me if I was a client of yours.
Yeah. First thing I'd say is check your head and how are you doing up there mentally, because you're in a new relationship, regardless of what service they are providing or anyone. Mm-hmm. Next, check your gut. How's your gut doing? Because your gut speaks volume. And if you mentally like, yeah, but you're just like, I'm not sure, then there's a flag. And don't discredit your gut feeling. Don't discredit what you are thinking, and make sure that those two align. And if you're not sure, even if you like going to a therapist, if you're not sure, that's going to increase your anxiety baseline. And what you need to do is maybe exit that relationship and go find a new relationship. There's nothing wrong with changing that. What you don't want to do, or ideally you want to avoid, is continuing down the path where you're going through a relationship. And this is a big part of your life. A divorce isn't small. It touches on all aspects of your life, period. And if you're working with one of your team members, what have you, in a new relationship and you're not feeling comfortable, switch gears. Do not subject yourself. And the reason I'm saying this is, at some point, that anxiety level and that bubbling level is going to keep coming up. You've already got enough going on. Why are you going to stick with something you don't feel 100% with? You just don't do that. And I've told folks, I'm not a legal guy. I'm not a finance guy. I'm a common sense. Here's the tools we built. Seek the guidance of the experts. And if you're not feeling good with those experts, switch. That's a reason why there's a world full of finance guys, legal guys, and counselors out there so you can pick from the pool.
A mentor of mine once told me, you have to, regardless of how these people are related to you, whether you're employing them or whether it's a temporary situation or whatever, like hiring an attorney or whatever, hire slow, fire fast. Do you believe that?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason for this, and I don't make decisions spot on, especially like big financial decisions. I wade through it, and I loop in, especially like on finance decisions, I loop in my financial guy and I go through and we vet through things and make sure things are good. The worst thing you want to do is hire quick, fire slow, because now you're just drawing the process out. And guys and ladies, if you're going to be doing the firing slow process, get rid of it sooner than later, because otherwise you're going to be paying for it down the road. You just lost all this time by doing the slow fire thing. Hire, make a decision slow, fire fast, and continue on. Do you go back and rehire the person you just fired? No, you stay the path and just continue going on. There's a reason why you fired them in the first place.
Yeah. There's other relationships that we have to be responsible for too, right? We have to be responsible for the past relationships that we've had and dealing with them emotionally and handling that, but also new relationships. That is, like, we could probably do a whole show on helping you and your kids navigate these new relationships, especially introducing to like a new relationship, right? A new love interest, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the practical things that the dudes that are out there that are going through this? It tends to be the dude that will introduce that person pretty quickly, right? Like what are some of the things you can share with us in that respect?
I slow walked mine, and I've been in a relationship about 3 years now, ongoing, and I think it was close to almost a year. And one person said, that's too long. I'm like, no, it's not, because even though I got separated in 2009, divorced 2013, I want to make sure things are good. And so I'm going to take this process and walk it out, because that's just my approach, and go from there. And then, and the other part of this is key, and there's no one answer on any of this. Depending upon how old your kids is, how you go about influencing a new significant other to said kiddos, because there's a whole different approach when my kids are young adults versus when they're like under 10, what have you. There's two different paths to this. I also, for introducing it, I showed pictures initially, then we had dinner together, and a bunch of us, and she has a child as well, so it was my two kids, her kid, and us and it was fun. It clicked. It went well. And taking your time to do this, I personally don't rush these things, and back in my head, a little voice says, Paul, you got divorced once. you've had one other relationship since you've been divorced. It was like 6 months, petered out. This one's 3. And about a year into it, I said to myself, I want this whole thing to work. I don't want any surprises. I want the kids to click. And you can't force your kids to click, by the way. And so my anxiety level down, and we said, we're going to go casual, just going to go to a nice Asian restaurant, sit down, have some fun, have a meal. And it worked out really well. I know other people who have not taken this approach. They've introduced quickly. They went the quick approach, and it worked for them. And I said, wow, well, kudos to you. And I also know guys who have been introduced to a new partner, and their partner had young kids. And now you got to do this dance, Brian, because you're going through this whole process. And if you're being brought in and the kids are younger, who's the dad role, and how does that play out? Because you may have a significant other of your ex who's now around too, and you're going to have these commingled. And that's the scenario I went through. My kids were under the age of 15. My ex had a new other half, and we had to dance of who's going to be the oversight, who's going to. Unfortunately, he and I were on good terms, but there's a whole dance to walk here when it comes to this whole relationship thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, we have a blended family now, and I've got it's taken some time, but now I think we're to the point now where like my now wife can be in the same room with my ex-wife, and they're getting along relatively good. And my now wife's ex-husband and we're in the same fantasy football league, if that tells you anything, right? Like we're like it's always been that way. It's just been a very different dynamic between the two. So you've got to kind of learn, I think it's all normal, right? Like you're going to have some cases where it's just like kumbaya, and there's other cases where it's like total disaster. Unfortunately, I got the total disaster one. But break it down for me though with the kids, because you put this out there, and I don't want it to get lost. Sure. So let's say you have like the under 10 to 16, 10 to 18, then you have like more of like the young adult. Like, just quickly, like what are the best ways to approach introducing a significant other to that?
And before I even
the age ranges.
Before I even answer this in any level of detail, I'm going to tell anyone who's listening or ever sees this, the first thing you need to do as an individual is go out and do your own homework, because what Paul says may not work for you. And so to go from that aspect, younger kids, you may have to role play, because that's how they relate, and they relate into role playing. And what that looks like, guys, it's going to be up to your situation. Maybe role play in a family meeting, what have you. So that's the under 5 crowd. And the 5 to 10 crowd, where I was, we got separated and divorced. We were no technology, family meeting in the living room, sitting on the floor in a circle. And I remember my son was sitting next to me. Short version, it was the hardest conversation I ever had with my kids, because we're going from a family unit to now nothing. Older kids that are over 15, etc., know your kids and approach them and remove tech. Keep tech out of it, because you don't want distractions. You get a 5-minute conversation with the family, with the kiddos. Put your phones down, put them out of the way, and I recommend that you go somewhere quote unquote neutral, and don't do it where you're going to be now mixing it with other people. Keep it where you're just going through this by yourself, because whether you're telling about getting divorced or getting ready to introduce to a new spouse, your kids deserve your undivided attention in a neutral area, whether it be home, what have you. But I wouldn't be doing this for the first time at your new spouse, new significant other's place of residence, etc. I would try to go kind of neutral on that. And part of the reason I say that is it gives the kids a fresh perspective. They're going to be listening and might be more attentive, versus if they're in a non-neutral place where they're like, or you could even do it in a room, for example. And again, just places where there's minimal distractions and they can connect with you, because it's a heartfelt, emotional conversation.
Yeah. How did they adapt to like, I don't know. And what do you see mostly with the people that you work with, and how like they're just adapting to this new post-divorce life, right? Like, I guess where the question stems from is because I had a conversation with another podcast guest a couple of days ago, and we were talking about that post-divorce identity crisis. And because again, like we're the breadwinner, the dudes stereotypically, like us dudes are like, well, we're the breadwinner. We're the ones that have the career. We're the baseball coach, the little league coach. We're the football coach. We're this thing. We're that thing. We have all these like external identity labels that are put on us that we mostly self-create. And now all of a sudden we're a divorced dad. Like it's like just saying that, I realize how the gravity of that, like how weird that is.
No, it's very weird. And Kids are resilient. They're going to survive. Don't rephrase. Most kids will survive, and they'll continue on down the path. My son, when he was younger, had some behavioral stuff at school, which is understandable because he was young and still grow. My daughter, for the most part, she's been pretty rock solid this whole thing. And for my world, in my head, I know that I'm a divorced guy as well. And I have all these labels around it. And I'm the guy who's supposed to be the breadwinner, et cetera. And I'll share with you, going through all of this before, during, and after my divorce, I've been laid off times 3. And the reason I share this is because when the breadwinner becomes laid off, that changes everything completely. And the kids read your response of this and how it impacts you long-term down the road. Back to the kids and the post-divorce lifestyle. I'm fortunate. My kids are pretty strong emotionally, healthy, no illnesses, what have you. I know other people I've worked with where the kids were having emotional issues or growing up issues, meaning they're acting out, not behaving, not cooperating. It was to the point where the parents were getting so stressed out. I'm like, I said, you can share it with me, that's fine. But I said, what you guys need to do is get them help and get them some therapy or go see someone, because if they're going through this, you as a parent may need, to your point earlier, Brian, there's a village. It's got to come in and it's got to have the resources to play. And so go out and grab an assistant, grab the therapist coming through and go through that. And for yourself and for others, the reason I've slipped twice now and called Jamie and Brian is because the conversation you and I having flows so smoothly. And one of my best friends in the world his name is Brian. And that's why I'm reverting back to that. So I apologize for the name, but I want the group to realize that the value of having a resource where you're flowing back and forth like this is huge.
Yeah, 100%, man. No worries. But I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, I think I don't know. I see this in so many cases that we work, and the main message here is you can't let this become your identity. And I see that happen a lot. And, I'm thinking about a case that I'm working on right now where, the gentleman had to go back. He was actually a stay-at-home dad for many, many years. And now he has to leave that world, right? So he's feeling a lot of the same emotions that a lot of women feel when they're going through this change, because they wanted to stay home and raise the kids. And now they can't, because they have to go to work because they have to be able to support themselves and so on. Now he's in that same situation. So I can see it from both angles, and it's tough. Now he has a totally different identity, and I kind of feel bad for him because I can see it in his face how sad he is about that. But
that's got to be devastating. It's got to be absolutely devastating. And I'll share with you briefly. So again, back to I'm not the typical guy role here, because when I was married, my ex did the finances. Well, completely. I just decision. I'm like, we're both in healthcare, blah, blah. She does all the finances. We split up. I'm like, oh crap. Now I got to actually pay attention to all the nuances and details of this. And so similar to the guy who went from being a stay at home to now working, I had to step up to the plate and get myself wrapped up to speed super fast, because guys, I was aware of the big stuff, not the day-to-day recurring expenses and things like that. And even going forward now, as I go through, I am laser focused on where's my funding at and everything else and how I'm going to get through things. And that transition alone, I mean, to the point of weekly, I get a tick going on. I'm like, I just need to check balances, make sure. And I'm also one of those guys who wants to make sure that the credit cards don't have any extra expenses on it, things like that. So to your point, when you go through the divorce, there's aspects of your life that you might not have been in control of prior. Well, guess what, dude? You own 100% of everything of you, period.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you made the segue into finances, because I almost forgot that this is a finance show. This is a show about finance, because I'm so interested in the mindset and the self-help piece of this, especially coming, with dudes, because we don't get a lot of people that focus strictly on dudes, and we don't get a lot of dudes that we work with. So I'm fascinated by some of the stuff that you're working on and the way that you go about your stuff. Let's talk, maybe just enlighten us as far as, I come to you as a, soon to be divorced dad, or I'm, recently divorced, and finances are an issue. What are some of the tactical things that you would share with me or ask me to do to eliminate some of the fears and the concerns that I have?
Yeah, no worries at all. And the audio cut out a little bit, but I'm going to piece it together. So first thing I tell, and if I was going through this again, I'd do the same thing. First, be aware of your finances immediately. Know what regardless to where you are in the divorce phase, break down all your expenses, because you're going to have before, during, and after with your finances. And realize that when you're going to go through your divorce, you're going to have costs that you didn't have before, including and/or mediation, lawyers, child support, maybe spousal support. You may be splitting assets. Anything, when you go through your budget, make sure you're putting in for yourself, especially post-divorce, any kid expenses, because you may not be sharing kid expenses 50-50. If you want to take your kids on a trip, you're not having the ex pitch in money per se. You're not paying for this by yourself. So being financially aware, A through Z, for myself was a brutal wake-up call, to the point of I recently had to go get a HELOC because I want to do some house stuff. My house is now being rented. I know I'm going to have to do some cleanup on my tenants leave. I'm like, I don't want to blow through my cash on hand. That's why I referred back to the finance guy, this Brian, who I've known for years. We went through to get interest rate the whole 9 yards. And last time I did this, I was married. So now I'm redoing this stuff. And I'm the kind of guy where I'm going to get 20 million quotes, all this other stuff, and go through it. And this is also where you decide slow and you fire quick. Because it's making decisions like this is not something you do small. And, Jamie, as you go through this finance stuff, and it's okay to ask for help, guys. That whenever I do big finance stuff for myself, I reach out to my finance guy and bounce stuff off of me. It's like, Paul, keep bringing it to me because I'd rather hear about it now versus later when you're trying to retire and you can't because of X, Y, and Z. Jamie, to your credit, man, your area of focus with what you're doing and the people you're seeing with, that's brutal. And to credit to you and kudos to you for helping people out, because the finance side of a divorce and life post-divorce can be super scary.
Thank you. I will pay you later for the commercial.
No, I'm being sincere, and to your audience, a lot of guys think they're going to get and go take half the assets. They're going to get 50% of this. Until everything is done and until everything is signed, nothing's done, guys. And I have seen people who it's so damn contentious, it's not going to mediation. No. It's lawyer versus lawyer, and it's lawyer versus lawyer for any interaction. And you can't even have people in the same room. There's going to be people out there whose net worth is phenomenal. And because of kid count, because of who had custody, their wealth may be drastically changing as a result of said things. I'll share one very brief story. Guy, my age, 50s, married for 20 plus years, 2 grown kids. She was not making much. He was making a bunch. And because of the way the whole thing worked out, he's going to be paying close to $1 million, and he doesn't have $1 million. He's going to be paying close to $1 million in the next 10 to 15. Yeah.
Unbelievable, man. Any questions that I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything else you want to share with our audience before we part ways here that we didn't touch upon?
I think final parts are going through divorce is never easy. You can survive. You are divorced for life. There's going to be events you cannot predict. Take your time, breathe, use checklists, do your homework, find resources to walk you through it. Do not do it blindly. Leverage people that you have. And it's okay, guys, to get checks on your emotions and your heartstrings. And I would encourage people to keep an eye on the emotions, heartstrings, because it does influence absolutely everything else that's out there pertaining to divorce. Jamie, that's what I've got.
Yeah, man, you hit all, like, this has been such a great conversation. I wish we could go for another half an hour, or do multiple parts of this, because we can go in so many different directions with this, man. But I'm super appreciative of your time and for your passion, your knowledge, and the work that you're doing at Divorce Detox, man. It's like just like the work I do at Allegiant and the work we're doing at Secure Split, which I'll share with you offline. Our listeners don't need to hear my commercial on that, but you and I can talk about it. But don't worry, listeners, there'll be links to all this stuff and the Divorce Detox information, Paul's info, our stuff will all be in the show notes for you. But thanks, man. It's been a great conversation. If you want to learn more about Divorce Detox, like I said, access all the resources that we're going to post up on Paul and his self-paced program. It's going to be amazing. So be on the lookout for that. If any of you are listening and you're navigating the financial aspects of divorce and the financial nuances of divorce, Allegiant Divorce Solutions is here to help. You can look for us at allegiantds.com and book a complimentary and confidential conversation with us. Be sure to subscribe to Broke Up Not Broken for more empowering stories just like this. Like, subscribe, do whatever you got to do to make sure you follow along and get more expert advice like this in future episodes. Until next time.